the Oscars are broken because of who votes for the Oscars. And if a different group of people voted for the Oscars would be better. Yes, that's the argument that's making the rounds this year. That argument kind of makes the rounds every year when it comes to the Oscars. But it's particularly potent this year because it's the second year of the Oscars So White controversy. Now, we can't know what a different group would have picked when it comes to the nominees, but we can know what a different group would pick when it comes to the winners, because once again, the results of the BTT Oscar vote are in. So let's see how a different group of voters, you guys, would select the winners. And I think with some of these, you'll be pleasantly surprised, but I think some of these you'll be surprised at how close you skew with the Academy voters. And I think that points to that there are other problems with the system, and perhaps the Academy hasn't fixed things just by altering the voting rules, because it's such a political campaign season, and the quality of the actual film itself seems to be pretty low down the list of what's considered. It really is to some degree a popularity contest. Narratives are involved, and I think they're so compelling that even we kind of get pulled into them. All right, so let's go over the results. And at the end, this year I added for the first time a question about the Oscars, and it's about the Oscars So White controversy. So we'll go over what you guys had to say about that as well. But we're going to start out with Best Picture. All right, so the front runner is The Revenant, and the chances for an upset come from Spotlight and The Big Short, potentially. But it's really between Spotlight and The Revenant. But you guys overwhelmingly picked Mad Max Fury Road. 38%. I think it's unlikely that it will win, but it was very rewarding to see kind of moviegoers rally back around that movie. So 38% went to Mad Max Fury Road of your vote, but 16% went to The Revenant, and then 12% to Spotlight, showing that for you guys, it is, those two movies are, front runners, and I think you would be happy with either win. And it does show that Spotlight really is, a sleeper contender there. Then The Martian with 11%, Room with 9%, The Big Short with 3%, Brooklyn with 2%, and Bridge of Spies with 1%. And I think The Big Short went so low on your list because so few people have seen it. But I think the last two, I think that another big debate that we always have about the Oscars, and one that I think is also important, is that the Best Picture category perhaps is too big. I know it's supposed to be in there to get films in there that normally maybe wouldn't, but I think at the end of the day, all it does is, overcrowd the field with contenders that have no hope of winning, right? All right, so that's the first category. Now let's move over to Best Actor. This one, talk about overwhelming. 58% of you went to Leonardo DiCaprio for The Revenant. Although when you think of the outcry for him to win, 58% perhaps is not as high as he would like to have seen. I was reading an Oscar ballot from The Hollywood Reporter publishes blind Oscar ballots from actual voters, and someone said a lot of Academy voters were turned off by Leonardo DiCaprio's bodyguards that he brought with him to every event. So who knows if that'll affect the actual voting. It would be crazy if he would lose an Oscar yet again, but this time for having bodyguards. I don't know why he thinks he needs to be protected from Academy members, though. But anyway, maybe that's why they're so insulted. So 58% of you, though, did not see Leonardo DiCaprio's bodyguards, and so you put him as who you think should win. But then Matt Damon, 13%, and Michael Fassbender, 11%. So again, Leonardo DiCaprio, of course, is the odds-on favorite for the actual ceremony, but I think that Matt Damon and Michael Fassbender are the best shots at unseating him, Matt Damon in particular. Then Eddie Redmayne, 9%. He really has no momentum, even with you guys. And then Bryan Cranston for Trumbo at 3%. So it's really sad to see how far Walter White has fallen. So that's the Best Actor. Best Actress. Here, again, even more so than DiCaprio in terms of a mandate, 62% of you feel that Brie Larson should win for Room, and she isn't expected to win the actual Oscar. So as you can see, again, another one where you guys are right in line with what Academy voters are expected to deliver. So Brie Larson for Room, 62%. Then Cate Blanchett at 13% for Carol. A lot of love for that movie, a lot of respect for it from a small group of moviegoers, but a very strong support, very touching. Then Jennifer Lawrence, you can't keep Jennifer Lawrence and her fan base down at 9%. Saoirse Ronan at 8%, and then Charlotte Rampling at 2%. So that was hilarious. And then, of course, she hurt herself considerably with the comments that she made about the Oscars so white controversies, especially with the general public. Now let's move over to Best Supporting Actor. You guys, this was a little bit, more of an even playing field for you guys. Sylvester Stallone is expected to take it because of his wonderful Oscar narrative, coming full circle, having not won the first time around for Rocky, but having been nominated, but the picture, winning Best Picture, etc. And so people want to see him get the win for that role in the awards community. And so do you, at 38%. But then Tom Hardy, I was surprised at this. Tom Hardy came in second place with 24%. You guys really liked his performance there. A lot of love for The Revenant from the movie-going community. Some harsh words as well from some mainstream moviegoers. But there's that contingent, that supports Nolan, DiCaprio, and it seems that Tom Hardy is looping into that group as well, which is obviously he's now worked with both of those individuals. Leonardo DiCaprio, this is his second movie with him after Inception. So that's a great group for Tom Hardy to join. I think he fits with it perfectly, and that's very, very encouraging for him to get that 24% there for The Revenant, even though I think he has no shot of winning. Mark Ruffalo, 14%. You picked him next for Spotlight. Then Mark Rylance from Bridge of Spies, 8%. He could be a potential upset at the actual ceremony. And then Christian Bale, The Big Short, 7%. That movie really not getting a lot of love from you guys. All right, then Best Supporting Actress. This one was also something that, you could spread out a little bit over your vote. Now, there are three frontrunners, as I've said in my coverage: Alicia Vikander, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Kate Winslet. And those are the three frontrunners according to you as well. But you put Alicia Vikander there at 38%. I think she's getting a lot of ex machina love from you guys. Then Jennifer Jason Leigh of The Hateful Eight at 24%. That's great. Kate Winslet then at 14% for Steve Jobs. I think Kate Winslet I think if anyone's going to win this besides Alicia Vikander, it might well indeed be Kate Winslet. And I actually would give her the odds-on favorite because I think people want to give Steve Jobs an award. Then Rooney Mara for Carol at 11%. Again, Rooney Mara not proving to be incredibly likable with the movie-going public. And then Rachel McAdams for Spotlight at 8%. Really kind of begging the question, why is she there? All right, then Best Director. This was very interesting. You guys gave it to George Miller. The two categories were Mad Max Fury Road nominated, number one with you. And that's, we'll talk about overall where you guys divide from the Academy in just a moment, but because we're almost through the top categories. But George Miller, 61% for Best Director. That's excellent. And he should, I hope he knows that he still has that support from the fandom. So 61% for George Miller for Mad Max Fury Road, but then right behind him, because you guys, you pick somebody, when you pick somebody different, the potential winner or the potential upset is right behind it. So you guys are really in step with the Academy voters. Alejandro Inarritu for The Revenant at 24%. I think it's almost guaranteed he will win this. I just saw someone yesterday in my video say, "You're nuts, Grace, it's going to be George Miller." Alejandro Inarritu has swept every director award up until now. It could be Miller. I'd love it to be Miller, but it would be a huge turn of events. It would also be a shocking snub. It would be a great headline, but I think Inarritu, this is really going to be his. And 24% of you agree with that. Then the rest of the directors didn't really impress you. Lenny Abramson came at 5% for Room, but you can see what a discrepancy there, 61, 24, 5. Then you had Tom McCarthy for Spotlight at 3, and then Adam McKay for The Big Short, also at 3%. Interestingly, very similar movies there, and they perhaps their scripts impressed you, but the directing for both those activist films did not. Then, who deserves to win Best Animated Feature? The biggest landslide of the poll, Inside Out at 71%. It's almost guaranteed to win. Many of you felt it should have been nominated for Best Picture, as did many actually in the industry. But it's going to almost definitely win, and not only because I think so many people enjoyed it, and it's because it's a Pixar movie, but also because really no one has seen the competition. Anomalisa came in at 15% next, when Marnie was there at 6%, Shaun the Sheep movie at 5%, and Boy in the World at 1%. Probably also representing how many people saw it. So before we get into the Oscars So White 2 questions that I asked you, I just think overall you guys are really in line with what the Academy wants to do, with the exception of recognizing the work of a blockbuster. Now, The Revenant has turned into a bit of a blockbuster because it's doing so well at the box office, but it doesn't have a blockbuster mentality. I think what makes it a blockbuster, quite frankly, is Leonardo DiCaprio. He's probably one of the few, if the only, movie star left who pretty much guarantees box office gross when he's in, not too experimental a movie. I think The Revenant's right on the edge of being too experimental, but I think it's such a beautiful film, and it's so It's so ambitious that a lot of people went to see that to see the movie, and also maybe Tom Hardy helped as well. So that was a good package, and it did quite well. But it doesn't play like a blockbuster movie to the voters. So I think that's the one area where you guys differ, where I think we all differ because I'm rooting for Mad Max Fury Road as well. Is that we're willing to see the art in the blockbuster genre. And I think that the Academy voters still aren't willing to do that. But we don't know if it would change with a different group of voters. How much support do blockbusters have industry-wide, forget just with the older Academy voters. It's a difficult question. But we'll see how the things actually go down at the awards. Now, as for the Oscars So White controversy, I asked you, do you think that more diverse films should have been nominated this year? And the reason I made that distinction is because I didn't want to say, well, do you think they should have won? Because I think that's a very big difference. Nominated allows these films to hold their heads high, to have the best, nominee, Academy Award nominee on their Blu-ray box, on their resumes, for the people who worked on the movie. A lot of times a nomination is very valuable all by itself. So I think that, you can feel that a film should be nominated and not necessarily win. So interestingly enough, it was a 76-24% split, and it stayed that way no matter how many people voted. So as soon as the votes started coming in, it was a 3/4 to a quarter split, and it stayed that way throughout. But that's still very strong in, the nominees do not reflect modern film. And I would agree with that. I think they do not reflect modern film. So I think that's also something to take into account for how you voted. You had to vote on old school movies, right? Not so much modern movies. Then I asked a follow-up question, and I said, if you answered yes, which of the following films would you have nominated in some capacity? I didn't want to say in what particular category. And then obviously you can pick more than one choice in this category. Now, Creed, of course, is nominated for Sylvester Stallone, but it's not nominated for anybody else associated with the movie, and they ended up nominating the only white individual. Now, Ryan Coogler actually is not going to the Oscars, nor is Ava DuVernay. They're hosting a live event opposite the Oscars. So that's interesting right there. But you guys felt that Creed was the most deserving of other nominations at 29. Well, actually, Creed and Straight Outta Compton pretty much tied, just a couple of votes apart at 29% each. I would agree with both of those. I thought that Creed, if you're going to nominate Sylvester Stallone, I think that at least screenplay. Now, I don't know if Coogler would have made director. I think there was a very well-directed movie, to be honest with you. But I think that I actually would have preferred to see him in that category over Tom McCarthy for Spotlight. But I think that script, yes. Then Straight Outta Compton, that has a script nomination, unlikely to win. But I think that Straight Outta Compton should have gotten a Best Picture nomination, especially when you consider the scope of the films, of the real life repercussions of NWA. So Straight Outta Compton, I agree, and I think that those are the biggest snubs. Then Beasts of No Nation, there is discussion as to whether or not it qualifies as a Netflix movie. The Golden Globes went along with a Netflix day and date release, saying that was okay. I don't believe the Oscars ever clarified what their decision was. So that's really a murky area. But Beasts of No Nation came at next, pretty close at 24, and I think that's the strength of Idris Elba's star power. Abraham Otta, amazing there, should have been nominated. Jacob Tremblay, by the way, also should have been nominated, I think, for Room, probably even as a lead. But Beasts of No Nation, there were some really great performances snubbed there. Then Dope and Tangerine were the other two movies that should have been were worthy of being on the awards campaign circuit, but they only came in at 9% and 8%. I think that also speaks to how many people saw those movies. But those are really movies that are going to excel in the independent award circuit, and Tangerine at least did. But I think Creed, Straight Outta Compton, big enough movies, big enough audiences, it should have been recognized, and you agreed. So those are the results of the Beyond the Trailer annual Oscar poll. Thank you everybody who voted. We had more votes than ever before this year, just like with the best movies of the year. So that's fantastic to see the Beyond the Trailer audience growing. And I'll be live tweeting the Oscars. I look forward to discussing them with you, and then of course posting my review afterwards. All right, you can check out some more Oscar coverage right now.